My day 2 for knowledge base for MSBA/data analytics expert candidates. So for my day 1, I had built on GraphDB with Neo4j. I use a file directory to upload all the markdown files, and I worked on the Python script which automates the process of fetching all these markdown files from file directory and store it into the Graph database. Easier way to visualize this is directly querying from Neo4j. Now I have just 3 dummy test markdown files. One is for regression analysis, and you can see here this is related to parameter estimation, and this document is also related to a document called tests. This is just a test dummy file, so these are interrelated to each other. Today I worked a little bit on the APIs. So I built 3 API endpoints which is used to deliver the data to the front end in the future. And also I work a little bit on the front end using the mkdocs library to visualize the markdown files stored in the file directory here. From day 3, I might be working on D3.js, which directly interact with the GraphDB here to visualize the data stored and all the knowledges or the documents related to concepts. So if you call this API, it brings all the documents stored currently, show the contents for each of the documents. And there is another API which shows all the related document with that document. One more thing I have worked on here is I worked on a new way to upload or fix the markdown documents. So each of the times in current structure, I have to directly put files into the file directory and fetch them into the database. So I had to build an API endpoint in which users can directly upload a file in the client. I wish to add a way in which users can directly fix or edit the documents on the front end later if I use more advanced framework other than mkdocs. I'll try to upload a new document called test stat basics. There's no contents here. This is just a dummy file. And if I upload the file and execute the API, I can see that the file is being uploaded, and I have worked on the automated workflow using the Python. So what happens here in the backend is if any files are changed, created, or deleted, this Python script will work to sync between the file directory and the database and the front end. So I just added a new file through the API to the file directory, and this automatically syncs this data into the GraphDB here, and it's ready to show on the front end. So if I call the API once again, I can see the file is added here. A more easier way to check is if you query through Neo4j database, I can see one more document for test stat is updated. So here we can see all the documents uploaded. Currently we have 4 documents, and if you click them, it's going to directly show the markdown documents. So only reason I chose a markdown as a file format, and the reason I chose mkdocs to view the markdown file is it's easy to compose a document with any kind of formula or images or codes in it. But the limitation of this mkdocs is it's not a advanced web framework. So only it does is pulling the markdown files from the file directory and just directly showing them. So actually here, there's no interaction between this mkdocs web framework and Fast API and GraphDB Neo4j, but this mkdocs is directly referring to the file directory and pulling this document here. So why do we need the Fast API here is for displaying the graph view using the D3.js later. Also to have some more advanced features like editing the markdown files or showing more dynamically the relationship or related documents on this document view, I may have to expand or change this mkdocs framework into other more advanced web framework which directly have interaction with Fast API and the database itself. But currently it only pulls markdown files from file directory. I mentioned that I worked on the automated flow to fetch and synchronize all the data between the front end and database and the file directory. So let's see what happens if I upload more files. I will upload the document called MongoDB and execute the API. And using the API, I will upload 2 more files related to database management system. We can check this through the API, which checks all the files stored in DB, and also from the Neo4j Graph database. We can see that these new doc related to the concepts MongoDB is related to Redis and SQL. Maybe these are related because they are both NoSQL database, and it's also related to SQL because it's somewhat related to database management, but not related to here, that related concept here. Thanks to the Python script working between this FIS API, once we have updated the file, it's just directly going to appear on this front end too. So what's the next step? First of all, before moving on to D3.js, I think I have to work on the documents here. So all the documents here are just dummy right now. So currently all the data doesn't have any hierarchy. So I try to look for some ways I can create hierarchy here. If I can add those hierarchy as an attribute of GraphDB, so I can somehow show these hierarchy or the groups on the graph view. And then finally I had to work on D3.js.